and we're here at the Display Week 2024. Hi.
Hi, Nicholas.
So how's it going?
Yeah, it's surprising that despite the stories of gloom and things like that are going on in the industry about consolidation into China and so on, there's still lots of innovation. There's still people trying to find new solutions to old problems and indeed just pushing the envelope of what's really possible.
This morning there was a TCL CSOT CEO keynote, and he was talking about his business looks like it's going good.
Yeah,
it's not going down.
Certainly, one of the big stories is how the display industry for large screen is moving into China. If it's a TV display, LCD, then it's basically made in China. There are other people who make them, but they're now in fourth place or so. The news this morning was that Sharp was going to stop its Gen 10 fab in Sakai. So yeah, very, very much if you're in China, then you've built the fabs, and now it's about churning them and produce.
And these quantum dots are pretty nice, huh?
As we've seen from the Samsung QD OLED displays, then it's a really, really exciting and very, very persuasive display technology.
That's the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, and a Nobel Prize for quantum dots, indeed.
That's pretty cool for this show, right?
It just shows how important quantum dots are.
How about quantum dots LCDs? How nice are they right now?
I think that for LCD TV, then you can make any size, as you always could do an LCD. And a QD sheet added to an LCD TV gives that boost, and it very, very much fits with what consumers are prepared to spend at the moment. So really high cost, high-end TVs and things like that are struggling. Consumers are feeling the pinch, and they're much more cautious about spending. And a sort of mid-range one of LCD plus a QD sheet is certainly what consumers are happy to spend their money on.
I think maybe it's a shock when they see what you can get for the low price.
Yeah.
Then people, it's like they're thinking, why should I spend $7,000 on the TV when you can get something amazing for $1,500?
And indeed, at sizes that you could not imagine. So now you see 98-inch or 100-inch below $2,000. In China, in April, we saw $1,250 for a 100-inch TV. So incredibly cheap.
Wow.
Now, there's a lot of shipping cost in that. Yeah, so you're not going to see that in the US, but certainly prices of very, very, very large screens are now really low and really accessible. And for consumers, this is just an amazing amount of choice.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, and I think also then you've got that question for them, which is, do you go big or do you go better? Yeah, so same sort of money, you could buy 65-inch OLED, amazing performance, or you could go with a 100-inch LCD. What do you buy? Very confusing for consumers.
And quite controversial. I'm going to recommend that people also check out the second-hand market, because a bunch of people are selling their TVs, their OLEDs from 2-3 years ago, which are amazing. You can get them for $500.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think certainly one of the things that we see right the way across consumer electronics devices, especially phones, is that consumers have changed their minds about buying used and refurbished. Certainly in Europe, the biggest problem for the refurbished phone market is getting enough refurbished phones. The consumers want to buy them, they just aren't there, people aren't trading them in. So definitely I think consumers have changed their minds and feel much more happy about buying used refurbished products.
Because let's say you're giving advice to somebody who's considering buying a 3-year-old OLED or buying the latest one, what would you say?
Buy what you like. If you can't see the difference, don't pay for the difference.
There's a difference, right?
Yeah, but can you see it? Most people probably don't watch in ideal conditions, and as always on these things, it depends on your eyesight, your own perception. If you can see a difference and you value it, pay for it. If you can't see a difference, then don't believe the numbers marketing.
So I feel privileged because I've had the chance to see maybe the best display in the world. I don't know. Ventana with these tiled micro LEDs making a giant, even 8K display.
Yep.
Isn't it kind of like a dream coming true potentially?
Or the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're seeing that there's a lot more going on display technology than just a rectangular screen that's on the wall or on a tabletop or whatever. Then the integration of displays into architecture, into the built environment, into the furniture, is really one of those things that we're beginning to see, and that's probably the next stage, going beyond just a rectangular
100
display.
more than 150 inch, 200 inch. Like people want that.
If you can afford it, and if it's a reasonable price,
Shouldn't it become affordable?
let's see. I think that already you see on things like micro LED that the problem is now industrializing. You can make displays that work. And it's now to people who make process equipment and machinery for mass transfer and repair and things like that where you see the action. So it's now about the equipment to make it happen. And above all, it is about creating a positive business case for this. Let's remember that all those Gen 10 fabs have been built. They're there in China. They're not fully loaded. And you have to displace those paid for investments with something new. And I think this is the question: is there a positive business case to go into all these wonderful new technologies like you've seen out there, or is the problem actually generating return on investment, and especially as interest rates and things like that are higher than they were?
Because I was so fascinated to see the Ventana display, and it seems to be a challenge with designing something where the gap is impossible to see,
Yep.
but also you need each tile to be exactly aligned.
Absolutely, and the brain is so good at finding small differences. That's what kept our ancestors alive in the wild. Was being able to spot the predator hiding there and seeing the outline. And so we're incredibly good to find outlines on things. And the moment there's that, you
Even
can't
if it's
unsee
like
it either once you see
nanometers
it.
or something,
No.
we will see it.
Really, really.
But somehow they are figuring out. It
Yeah.
seems that they're arriving towards something where you don't see the gaps.
As always in this industry, the unseen heroes are the process engineers who sit there squeezing 1% out of the problem day after day after day, and suddenly you get to a point where you get a breakthrough. If you think that it was really only just over 20 years ago that people were wondering if you could ever make 42-inch LCD. And nowadays it's under $200 if you go down to a retailer. But that is the cumulative effect of all those process engineers, in particular looking at processes and manufacturing and so on.
So what do you think about those very big micro LED displays?
I think that there are two problems. The first one is obviously cost, and I think the other one is that resolution and heat management are really critical. So most of the time you can make displays at far higher resolutions than the application needs. So 0.9 pitch LED is available everywhere. Everybody's got one. Actually, if you're going to go and do a massive display and say cover a wall in the atrium of a public building, you don't need that many pixels. And cheaper ones with larger LEDs are actually good enough, and they're much more energy efficient.
Did you try the Apple Vision Pro?
I haven't yet, no.
Did you hear what people say? Because some people want to use it as a computer monitor, do the work on it, but I'm still not sure if it's really usable for more than a couple hours.
Right. I think your point of this sort of 1 to 2 hours is okay, and then beyond that, even subtle visual disturbances or differences between your balance perception and your visual perception is a problem for people, and it's at best tiring, and at worst, makes you feel nauseous. So I think that this 1 hour usage time is still an obstacle. NASA's been putting people into space since the early 1960s, and they still haven't solved motion sickness. This is an incredibly difficult problem to solve.
You're not wearing AR glasses right now?
I'm not wearing AR glasses right now.
Because
no.
there was a keynote this morning.
Yeah.
Facebook is looking for any ideas to get the good red micro LED micro display, or they say maybe it's going to be laser.
Yeah.
The next thing.
I was quite heartened by Jason's talk. I think there are two tracks to this problem. The first one is obviously solving technology problems, but the second one is actually designing the application and the software and all those things that make it a real useful solution to a real problem. And so far, many of these things have been kind of trinkets. And you then say, well, what actually problem does this solve? And that's been the real problem.
It's actually quite fascinating to see that maybe Google announced something today, and yesterday was ChatGPT new version, and it feels like, I don't know. I thought it was fake what they were showing because it was too good. The voice was too good, and I was like, it sounds too like a. It's breaking my Turing test.
And it's also at that stage you get into the uncanny valley, that when it's that good, that on the rare occasions when it slips up, it's even more noticeable. And I think that is, the believability is a problem, and also whether people actually feel comfortable with it. I think that social change happens much, much more slowly, and people have to get time to get used to it.
What are you going to be looking for here on the show floor?
I'm not quite sure yet. I think the things that I'm looking for are really where you've got a display technology and an existing problem, and especially software and content that can exploit it. On a lot of things like, for example, VR, the biggest problem is a shortage of content, and game studios at the moment have been laying off in the past year their VR teams. So we're going to have a desert of new content and software, and that's going to be the problem to get from here to there. So things that work and offer something a lot better with existing software and content.
And TCL keynote, TCL CSOT,
Yep.
Big announcement. We have inkjet OLED. What did they say? Fully working, ready mass production. Oh, did it not yet? It's coming.
It's a cruel technology. I was talking to one of my my old friends, Bob Rakes, and he said he remembered Cambridge Display Technology, Graham Fife, saying exactly that in 2003, that it was just around the corner. So this is a really, really tough technology problem, and there have been false dawns in the past. So let's see.
But they're showing something, right? They're
Yeah,
showing
you
a
can
laptop.
make one, yeah.
A laptop.
You can make one.
Yeah.
Are there 10,000 sitting in the dumpster at the back of the factory?
To get
how
one good
many
one.
can you? How many did they have to? Can they make it? Can they make it in mass production economically?
And the lifespan.
And
if
the
it
life
only works
cycle
for a
and
week.
all those things. So, well, let's trust but verify.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
It's an awesome industry to.
It's
To
amazing.
check out.
Just every time you think it's going to go boring, then it goes interesting again.